Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Apologies for the delay. Uh, my name is Dr. Michael MacDonald. I'm the Program Director of the MSc in Business Analytics in the Smurfit Business School, University College Dublin. I'm going to give a fairly quick presentation on the program. So the first thing that I'd like to define, if you like, is how do we interpret business analytics? So there are a lot of programs out there to do with data analytics and different types of analytics. So when we say business analytics, we want to keep the balance of business and scientific techniques. So we're using mathematics and technology, information technology, to improve business decision making. That's a very short but important definition. So we're not doing computer science. It's not pure statistics. We're always thinking about the business objectives. So how do we actually contribute to the creation of business value through the use of technology? So this suits a particular kind of person. So both the course content and then the characteristics of candidate that we look for coming into the program are important. So it has a practical focus, and again, the business application and value of what we're doing is always to the forefront. So managing data, which is often numerical in nature, analyzing that data, particularly bridging the use of data on a large scale with business users who do not have analytical capabilities. So if we think about something like a dashboard, for example, a senior person in an organization can understand a dashboard without necessarily having the skills to build and populate a dashboard. So being able to take complex data and give it meaning that can be understood by somebody in a business, that's really the key important skill. There's a lot of theory behind this. So a lot of well-established theory in the fields of mathematics, but particularly obviously statistics, and then a lot of computing theory as well. So algorithms, data management, data storage and processing. So again, well-established theories that underpin what we're trying to do. And then at a broader level, so this is where being in a business school is something that we take quite seriously. So yes, there's a lot of theory, and so we'll be working a lot with mathematics and programming and so on. But one of the things that we really emphasize in the program is working in groups. So working with other people is really important. So there's no point in being brilliant on your own. We have to be brilliant working with other people. So we place a great emphasis on problem solving and applying theory as groups to real world projects. We recognize that the kinds of people we're dealing with in an organization, as I said, tend not to have the analytical skills that we would have. So how do we bridge our skills to the broader business population within an organization? And then there's research finally in the area. So there's the thinking around business analytics is changing all the time. So at the moment, we're benefiting hugely from large-scale developments in cloud computing and enterprise systems, and we see more and more applications of artificial intelligence and machine learning to enhance the use of analytics. So what kind of person should do this? Well, again, we emphasize this mixture of business and technology, so hard and soft areas, if you like. It tends to be easier for somebody to have the technical foundations and then come into a program in a business school than the other way around. So while we do have business graduates coming into the program, they tend to be people who've chosen options to specialize in the information technology area. So the majority of people coming into the program actually will have a technical degree of some kind, whether it's mathematics or some kind of science or engineering qualification. What I would say in terms of should I do this program? Well, you have to be happy working with numbers. So if you're a little bit unsure about mathematics or you find it a struggle, then I would say it's not such a great idea. But if you enjoy engaging with numbers and large data sets, then you will enjoy the kinds of theory that we employ in the program. It's expected in practice that you would have some foundation in programming before coming into the program. And again, like with mathematics, if you know that you don't like programming, then that's, this is probably not the program for you. If you enjoy programming, it doesn't matter if you don't have an in-depth knowledge, but if you know that you have the kind of mindset that is well suited to programming, we will develop your skills. So we do teach programming in a couple of different languages from scratch, but I think it's important to either rule yourself in or out as somebody who will be good at programming. And the best way to do that is by either having taken a course during other studies or even just to take a self-paced online course in programming, again, just to establish whether this is something that you think you could be good at. Graduates from the program are going into quite a diverse range of organizations. So they're not purely technical types of companies, but of course there's a need for analytics across all kinds of businesses. So we see recently people coming out of the program. I see quite a lot of people going into finance, for example. So a lot of financial analytics roles. Always the big technology companies. So the big technology companies, of the top 10 technology companies in the world, all of them have a presence local to the business school, and all of them are hiring our graduates. And then the consulting firms, are regularly hiring a lot of our graduates. And the consulting firms like people coming out of this program because not only do they have specific technical skills, but they have the ability to learn new skills. So we're seeing a big emphasis on blockchain, for example, in the consulting firms. Briefly, the program structure is quite simple. So there are 3 terms. It's a full calendar year. Each term is equal in weight. The only variation being that in your final term, you take a capstone project, which is a project that applies your learning to some well-defined business problem, and you get to get into quite a lot of technical depth. And usually that means developing some solution and presenting it back to your class at the end of the summer. I mentioned already that we have a lot of group activity. We place quite an emphasis on problem solving in groups and producing deliverables as groups, which is something that takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's a very, very important skill for the workplace. Just one brief reflection. We touch on a lot of different skill areas here, and I would just, as a shorthand, differentiate different skill types as hard and soft. As hard being very technical, very black and white, where there is a right or wrong answer. Soft being the other end of the scale, where things are much more qualitative and subtle. And just something to think about briefly, it's not that one end of this spectrum is better than the other, but we all tend to naturally fall at some point on this spectrum. And we need to consider where we ought to be. So we might start off being very scientific and mathematical in our outlook, which would tend towards the left-hand side of the spectrum. And what we see through a consultant's career particularly, so people coming out of the program going into consultancy tend to move towards the right on this diagram through their careers. So if somebody ends up in a senior position in a consulting firm after 20 years, their job will be marketing. And they may have started off as a programmer. So it's just something to think about. So we try to cover as many of these skills as possible, and how you develop these skills is going to vary from person to person. But we recognize that there is a range of both scientific and more business focused skills throughout the program. And it's not to say that one of these skills is better than the other, but to recognize that all of these activities are necessary in a business. That is the end of my brief presentation. Thank you for listening. I see a few questions appearing, and I'll go through these, and please feel free to add to the questions. So, Owen, I don't know whether you've had a chance to read the questions as I've been.
Thanks, Mike, for that presentation. Look, yeah, I've been working through the questions, and I'm typing a few of them. I'm responding via the messaging system, but I suppose I'll call out a couple of ones here that I suppose are relevant to everybody. One of the questions that's popped up there is with respect to programming languages, Michael. I suppose, what programming languages should students know or maybe have a basic knowledge of in advance of joining the program?
Okay, well, we teach Python and R, and we use proprietary language within SAS, which is a statistical software environment. So we teach R and Python from scratch. So we don't require you to have formal grounding in any particular programming language. I think the more important point, as I mentioned earlier, is if you've done some programming of some kind, to know whether or not you have an aptitude for programming. That's kind of the key thing. So we don't have a prerequisite of any specific programming language.
Perfect, thank you. Another question here now. I may not articulate this correctly, so bear with me. I'm working as a functional business analyst on the business side and less on the tech end. How would this course help me or assist me?
Well, it would supplement the, I would say the first thing would be statistical techniques in data analysis, and then also tools. So if you're more at the business end, you may not be able to generate your own analytics. So if you were to work with, well, a programming language, for example, like R, would allow you to interact with large scale data. Whereas I don't know, obviously, the specific circumstances, but it's more likely that you are a consumer of analytics rather than a creator of analytics at the moment. And so we see a variety of tools that will help people to work on large data sets to build their own queries and dashboards and insight into data.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. I have a question here on optional modules, and one I suppose that specifically pertains to the area of sports and performance analytics. Is that something that will be covered within the wider breadth of the program, or is there an option to undertake something in that area?
There is an optional module in the summer which is specifically about sports and performance analytics. So, and the relevance of that obviously goes, is broader than just sports and performance, but it's an area that a lot of people happen to have I think a personal interest in. So people are interested in their own performance, but also they're interested in sports. As an industry, I would say, yes, there are opportunities in that industry. It's quite competitive though, because there are actually dedicated sports and performance management degree programs as well. But you would have if you were to take the sports and performance analytics option as a summer module, it would be at a level that would be probably, well, it would be above general degree programs in that area because our degree is more technical in nature.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. I suppose just following on from that again, I suppose the benefits of this particular program with respect to the field of supply chain and operations, I suppose, given that supply chain is such a big focus, given the current environment that we live in.
Definitely, there's a great need for that, and I'm hearing that from companies that there is a great need for analytics in the supply chain area. There are quite a lot of tools coming out these days that try to provide better analytics in the supply chain field. So as you said, Owen, a lot of companies have lost out very heavily through no fault of their own, but they see active supply chain management as an increasingly important area.
Perfect. Two more questions for you, Michael, and there's a couple here for me, so don't worry. I'll give you a break. Frequency of classes per week. So I suppose maybe could you give a sort of a broad synopsis of what a week on the program would look like with respect to classes, classwork, group work, etc.
Yeah, so we have 4 modules each term, which each module would have typically a 3-hour session. So 1/2 day per week of lecture time. There would be workshops and which would be a couple of hours a week, and but a lot of work outside the classroom. So I think our current students would tell us that they have a fairly full working week, which would be equally divided between lectures, group work, and independent study. So for every hour that somebody spends in the classroom, they will spend at least the same again in group work and at least the same again in individual activities.
Super, perfect. And with respect, I suppose, one final question here. With respect to the individual's laptop, do they require any additional sort of analytics software, any specific or specialized software to undertake the program, or is your standard issue laptop suitable?
Standard laptop is suitable, and we do provide access to different tools during the course, but no, there are no particular requirements. A question that does arise, obviously, is some people use Macs, myself included, and there may be a couple of instances where it would have been necessary to either get access to a machine with Windows or to run a shell that could run Windows on a Mac. So that does arise occasionally. But no, I would say a reasonably up-to-date laptop, ideally less than sort of say 3 years old, should be absolutely fine.
Perfect. So there's a number of questions here with respect to jobs and careers. So I'm going to address those, and Michael, feel free to jump in at any stage if there's anything that you'd like to add. So I suppose some of the queries that are popping in are: when can we start applying for jobs? What are the internship opportunities? Can I work while I'm doing my master's program? So I suppose let's talk initially about, career opportunities post-graduation. So when you start on the business analytics program within Smurfit, you have access to our careers team. That careers team is there dedicated to help and support you on your career journey throughout the master's program and post-graduation. So that careers team will run a number of services, I suppose both, I call them sort of soft skills and hard skills. From a soft skills perspective, they run a multitude of sessions covering interview skills, presentations, psychometric testing, intercultural skills. So all the really important items that don't necessarily get taught in a classroom environment that are very, very important for engaging, I suppose, with potential employers and in interview situations. In addition, we also run a number of careers fairs. So those careers fairs will take place both on the Smurfit campus specifically for our postgraduate students, and a number will also take place on the Belfield campus. That gives you an opportunity to engage with potential employers, to see what they do, how they do it, what roles they have. And I suppose I always say, to see if that organization is a fit for you as an individual, and if they have roles and careers that you are interested in undertaking. So in a sense, it's your chance to, I suppose, to weigh up and check out what options and what roles are out there for you as a potential candidate. But I will say, and I suppose Michael will say, will back me up with respect to this, analytics, I suppose graduates from our analytics programs are highly sought after. The skill sets that you build are probably one of the best in the country. Graduates with analytics skills are in high demand, given, I suppose, that the digital nature of the environment that we've transitioned into. And I think, I suppose, it's grasping that opportunity and engaging with those potential employers is vitally important, not only during the program, but also as you sort of transition into that postgraduate work environment.
Yeah, well said, Owen. And just to pick up on one thing that you mentioned there, and it sort of relates to careers, is there's a capstone project as part of the program. We do not offer dedicated internships because it's a 1-year full-time program. There isn't space for internship, but the capstone is an opportunity to do an applied project, often in collaboration with a company. And this actually often leads to, it can be a great way to collaborate with a company and develop a job opportunity. So we've seen with certain employers that if a student carries out their capstone with that company, there's a 80% or better chance of a job offer from that company. So the internship structure just doesn't fit the program, because, as I said, it's a full 1-year program. But the capstone is actually a really, really good way to do a very specific applied piece of work with the company, which is actually more beneficial to the company than an internship. So that's just, it's a different way to link into an organization, but very effective.
And I think just to follow on from that, I'll always say, because I know there's questions there around internships, and it's something that I would be asked, I suppose, quite frequently. And I will always say, look, our master's programs are 12 months in duration. They're short bursts and they're exceptionally intense. What we give you is the skill sets, I suppose, and the knowledge and the ability to transition directly into the workforce. So there's that internship element isn't necessarily required. You don't need that, I suppose, that gentle walk into a work environment. You have the skill sets and the knowledge in place, and that capstone project then in addition complements that. So I suppose one of the things are the employers come to Smurfit and to you as a business analytics graduate because they know you have those skill sets in place, and they want you to hit the ground running with respect to working in their organization. So the internship, if you studied, I'm going to say, over in the States where master's programs may be 24 months in duration, yes, there may be an internship element, but within a European context and within an Irish context, it's very much I call it, it's a short, sharp shock. But it's worth the hard work because you get the dividends at the far end.
Agree, absolutely.
So I'm just looking down here at some of the other questions and everything. So okay, so it's one there. Can see I'm an international student. How difficult is it for me to find the job? So look, what I'd say to the international students that are on the webinar, look, the analytics program predominantly would be the class we made up of a significant amount of international students. When employers come to talk to us and come to talk to Smurfit, okay, they don't look, I always say, they don't look at your nationality or where you're from, what you've done. They look at the skill sets and knowledge that you have. And if you fit what they're looking for, they will employ you. They're fully versed and understand the visa situation and the visa requirements. That's all very much second nature to them. Though I suppose the key thing that you must remember is, I suppose, that job market it's highly competitive. You're competing against your peers in your class. You're competing against peers from other institutions. So it's making sure that, I suppose, you structure and build your portfolio to make you stand out from the crowd. Your nationality or the fact that you're international students isn't irrelevant. What that employer is looking there is to make sure that you have the requisite skills that they're looking for, and then it's down to you, I suppose, to articulate that value position to make sure that they select you over any other potential candidate.
Yeah, and I would just back that up by saying that, we have a lot of graduates, international graduates from the program, and if they're the right candidate for the job, the company has, understands that, you're entitled to work here for 2 years, first of all, post-graduation, and companies are quite happy then to support any necessary visa application beyond that.
Perfect. Yep. So one question here is with respect to fee payment. So it will, I suppose, it will depend on where you're coming from and with respect to your visa requirements. But generally speaking, the university accepts fee payments. You can pay it all in one go, or you can pay it in 3 installments. Generally speaking, the first installment is due in advance of commencing the program, so it'll be due in late August. The second installment is generally due at the end of February, and then the third, normally the end of April, start in May of the following year. But there are caveats to that with respect to visa requirements, and some visa requirements stipulate an additional fee payment for your first fee payment to support your visa.
Can you pay in Bitcoin?
Unfortunately not. The value of that moves a bit too much up and down for our liking. We're still from that perspective.
Yeah, I see a question there on Capstone Zone, and so when do companies start coming to Capstone projects? That takes place during the second term. So companies, we're going through that process at the moment. So typically we would allocate projects end of February, early March.
Okay, I see a question here just with respect to, is it possible to convert your full-time course to part-time course? Again, I suppose, generally speaking, no is a very straight answer. Okay, in exceptional circumstances, it may be possible, but there are visa implications with respect to that particular sort of assessment. So it would be on a case-by-case basis. But generally speaking, the answer to that question is no, but with some very, very rare exceptions.
If you're working full-time here already, it's possible. Yeah. A couple of questions on cohort size. So at the moment we're running the program twice for the first time at the moment. So our class size in total is 150. It's split into 2 deliveries, and we obviously don't have exact numbers for the coming year, but it'll be something similar.
Yeah, that's correct. We would aim to have in or around a similar number of students on the business analytics program this year. It's a big master's program, but I'm still hearing good news from recent graduates in terms. So it's even so the program has grown in recent years, but it would not be the case to say that people are having difficulty finding jobs because the program is larger than it was before. I think the career outcomes are still very, very positive. The career outcomes, I mean, for anyone who has concerns, I suppose, about the class size, I think what you need to look at is as Michael says, is those career outcomes. And year on year, graduates have done very, very well and have been placed in roles very, very quickly. And I suppose we see that continuing for the foreseeable future, given the demand out there for business analytics graduates. and with the skill sets that you build in that program. So I would have no concerns from that perspective. So folks, we're gonna wrap it up there. I'm gonna say thank you very much to everybody. If you do have any other queries, feel free to drop us an email and we will get back to you in due course.
Thank you very much, everybody. Apologies again about the late start. I was working with their current cohort. Sorry about that, and I hope this session has been helpful.
Right. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Thanks, Owen.